The town of Hollow Creek was a geological anomaly of stillness, a strata of routine and quietude. Its labyrinthine streets of quaint, repetitive shapes were occupied by people who moved with the predictability of a cosmic clock. A benevolent, suffocating sameness draped over them like a comforting shroud. Then came the fog. A December fugue state rolled in, and with it a new structure at the town's ragged edge. It was a shop, a grotesque blister on the face of the landscape, its sign a gaudy, screaming thing that announced itself in the groaning wind. Curiosities from beyond. The words were an affront, a loud, vulgar declaration in the silent language of the town. The owner was a figure wrought from shadows and old cloth, a man whose presence felt less like a person and more like a clinical diagnosis of malice. His eyes were twin pinpricks of light in the gloom, and his gaze carried a morbidly fascinating indifference that felt like a surgical tool. The town and its collective, unassuming mind had always possessed a profound susceptibility to novelty, a curious, almost pathological inability to resist the unfamiliar. The morning sun, a thin, diluted warmth, struggled to pierce the persistent mist. The townspeople, drawn by an irresistible, compassionate dread, gathered before the shop's splintered door. Inside, the air was a thick, humid tapestry of scents: dust, forgotten spices, and the metallic tang of old blood. Shelves groaned under the weight of unnecessary, purposeful junk. A mirror with an ornate, gilded frame that seemed to drink the light. A shattered hourglass where the sand held a profound stillness. And a collection of dolls with faces of chilling, lifelike inertness. The initial purchases were made with the frivolous gravity of a child's game. A quiet, almost mournful laughter echoed in the dusty room as the residents exchanged their worthless paper for objects that hummed with a palpable wrongness. They saw only the aesthetics, the twisted beauty, but failed to notice the subtle, spiritual weight of the items, each one a compressed packet of someone else's anguish, a coiled spring of vengeance waiting to snap. That night, the psychic wounds began to bleed. Clara Reynolds, a schoolteacher whose compassion was a well-documented fact, stood before the ornate mirror. As she gazed into it, her reflection did not return. Instead, she saw a stranger, a psychotic, tearful version of herself performing acts so vile they defied the clean lines of her morality. She felt a cold, textural shadow creep over her skin, and whispers thin as static described horrors that tasted like copper and old lies. Across town, young Billy Hart's new doll began to animate, its glass eyes suddenly imbued with an electric crimson glow, stared into the gloom of the basement. The air grew thick and heavy, smelling of the damp, earthen loneliness of a grave. The doll's chattering was a sound that didn't belong to the physical world. It was the sound of a mechanical mind trying to articulate a human scream, and the whispers that accompanied it were a siren song to a place of infinite, beautiful decay. As the nights bled into one another, a fragile, new sense of community was forged from a shared ordeal. The town's collective wound manifested in whispered stories and shared glances. They realized the shopkeeper had not just sold them objects, he had sold them reflections of their own vulnerabilities and past regrets, amplifying them into a shared living nightmare. In the town hall, a group gathered. Clara, Billy, and the others, their faces etched with a profound, desolate wisdom, shared their narratives of possession. The shopkeeper's distant, tinkling laughter was a malicious, mathematical calculation, a frequency of pure joy harvested from their chaos. Led by Clara, a woman now imbued with a fearful, unwavering resolve, the group returned to the shop. The building, once an ugly blot, had now become a living, breathing, organic fortress of despair. The shopkeeper awaited them, his face a canvas of unadulterated, smiling cruelty. "Welcome, dear souls," he crooned, his voice a warm, desolate sound. "So many yearn to reclaim a past they can possess. Isn't it rich?" Clara, holding her mirror like a shield, stepped forward. "We will not be your pawns any longer," she declared, her voice a fragile, defiant thing in the vast silence. He laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "They belong to me now." But the townsfolk, bound by their shared ordeal, held their objects close. They poured their pain, their memories, and regrets into the artifacts, not as offerings of fear, but as a final, desperate act of confrontation. A brilliant, agonizing surge of light erupted from them, and the shadows writhed. The tortured souls within the objects screamed as they fought against their own release. Clara brought the mirror down, shattering it on the floor. A blinding, searing flash of light consumed the space. When the light faded, the townspeople were still there, but everything was different. The objects were no longer physical relics. They had become a part of them. The shattered mirror was now a cold, reflective film over Clara's skin, showing 100 distorted, screaming faces where her own should have been. The chattering doll had merged with Billy, his bones now clicking and clacking with a sound that didn't belong to the physical world. The objects had not been a compressed packet of anguish. They were a vessel for a parasite that had completed its life cycle. The shopkeeper's laughter, no longer distant, echoed from within each of them. He had not been defeated. He had found a new, more perfect host. He had not sold them objects, but a final binding bargain. The townspeople were not free. They were now a walking, talking monument to his victory. Their souls not reclaimed, but consumed. The town of Hollow Creek was still a place of quietude, but now it was a silence born of perpetual inner agony, a testament to a single terrible truth. Not all curiosities are meant to be understood.